fabled heat, where magic meets desire. Subscribe to ignite the fantasy.
The glow moss on the ceiling pulsed like a dying heartbeat, each faint flash sending trembling shadows across the damp stone walls of my archive chamber. The light was weak, a sickly green that seemed to struggle against the darkness, and every throb echoed against my ribs, reminding me that time was slipping away like sand through a cracked hourglass. Outside, the lead-lined obsidian door sealed the deep city of Umbra, a place where crystal forges sang in low, resonant chords, aquifer tunnels whispered with the rush of ancient waters, and night shift sentinels muttered low chants that rose and fell like the tide. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of old vellum, the faint musk of mildew, and the metallic tang of ink that had dried on my fingertips for years. My thoughts were a tangled knot of fear and longing, each strand pulling at the other until I could not tell where one ended and the other began. For 3 years I have been deciphering the Codex Solis Ignis, its brittle, blackened pages a death sentence written by a seer who watched our dying world wobble on the edge of a dying ember. The math was cruel, the veil would tear and the true sun, a furious, unshielded ball of primordial fire, would rise, turning our twilight refuge into a furnace. A single ray would scorch flesh to ash in seconds. We are creatures of the deep, and the surface is poison. The words on the page seemed to pulse with a heat that I could feel in my bones, as if the codex itself were a living thing, breathing dread into the very air I inhaled. My fingers, stained with luminescent ink that glowed faintly in the moss light, trembled as I traced the final chilling line, "Only the bonded may walk where light consumes." The word bonded sent a shiver of both dread and desire through me. I had never imagined the prophecy could be about love, but the memory of Lyra's warm breath on my neck, the way her hand lingered on my shoulder as we pored over ancient texts, made the line pulse with a different heat. My heart hammered against my sternum, each beat a reminder that I was not alone in this darkness. Lyra entered the chamber, her dark hair slick with the humidity of the tunnels, eyes alight with a fierce determination that mirrored my own. She moved close enough that I could feel the heat of her skin against my cheek, the faint scent of jasmine from the bioluminescent fungi clinging to her hair. "We can't wait for the council," she whispered, voice low and urgent. "They'll drown in their own fear while the sun burns us alive." Her words were a blade, cutting through the paralysis that had settled over me. I swallowed, my throat dry as cracked stone. "What if the bond is a curse?" I asked, my voice barely more than a breath, the question trembling on the edge of my tongue. The fear of the unknown pressed against my mind like a cold hand, but beneath it lay a current of something else, hope, perhaps, or the stubborn spark of defiance that had kept us alive this long. She pressed her forehead to mine, the contact sending a current of fire through my veins. The heat was not painful, it was a promise, a shared pulse that seemed to sync our heartbeats. "A curse is only a promise we choose to break together," she said, her lips brushing the hairline of my ear. The words ignited something primal inside me, a longing that had been smoldering beneath layers of duty and dread. I could feel the tremor in my own breath, the way my chest rose and fell in rhythm with hers. We descended into the abyssal passage, the stone walls humming with an ancient hunger that seemed to vibrate in the marrow of my bones. The floor was slick with a thin film of mineral-rich water that reflected the glow moss above, turning each step into a ripple of light. The true dawn, a sentient blaze, pulsed at the far end, its light hungry for souls. It was not a simple fire, it was a living thing, a consciousness of flame that seemed to watch us, to weigh us, to decide whether we were worthy of its mercy. Lyra's hand found mine, fingers interlacing, skin slick with sweat in the faint glow of the moss. The touch was electric, a spark that traveled up my arm and settled in my chest. As we stepped forward, the heat intensified, licking our backs, making our breaths shallow and rapid. The air grew thinner, each inhalation a bite of hot ash that threatened to choke us, yet we pressed on, driven by a force that felt both inevitable and chosen. The prophecy unfolded in a flash of blinding white. The veil tore, a jagged seam of raw energy ripping through the fabric of our world, and a torrent of pure fire surged toward us. It was a river of molten gold, a living sun that threatened to consume everything in its path. Instinctively, we pressed our palms together, the bond of our souls igniting a shield of molten amber that blossomed between us. The amber glowed with the colors of our shared longing, deep violet, soft rose, fierce crimson, each hue a memory of moments spent together in the quiet corners of the archive, in the hidden alcoves where we whispered secrets. The fire roared against it, trying to devour us, but the amber held, shimmering with a resilience that seemed to draw strength from our connection. I could feel Lyra's heartbeat against my own, a steady drum that steadied my own panic. The The heat pressed against the shield, a pressure that made my ears ring, but the amber did not crack. Instead, it seemed to pulse, expanding and contracting like a living lung, drawing in the fire and exhaling a soft, warm glow. In that suspended moment, I felt Lyra's heart hammer against my own, each beat a promise. I leaned into her, feeling the curve of her hip, the softness of her breath against my skin. The world narrowed to the space between us, the roar of the fire a distant echo. "If we fall," she murmured, her voice trembling with both fear and fierce love, "let it be together." Her words were a vow, a seal that bound us tighter than any prophecy could. The fire finally relented, the veil sealing once more, leaving us standing on the edge of a sunrise that was no longer a threat but a promise. The stone walls fell silent, the whisper of hunger fading into the distant echo of a new day. Light filtered through the cracks in the ceiling, turning the glow moss from sickly green to a warm amber that matched the shield we had forged. We emerged from the abyss hand in hand, the world around us still trembling, but our bond, once a prophecy of doom, had become a covenant of fire and desire. The true dawn had not consumed us, it had forged us. The air outside the passage was cooler, the scent of wet stone replaced by the faint perfume of night-blooming flowers that grew in the cracks of the city walls. The city of Umbra, usually cloaked in perpetual twilight, seemed to hold its breath, as if waiting for us to speak the next chapter. Lyra turned to me, her eyes reflecting the amber light, and for the first time since we began this desperate quest, I saw no fear there, only a fierce, unyielding hope. "We did it," she said, her voice steady, "but the world will not stop changing. We must be ready for what comes after." Her hand squeezed mine, a silent affirmation that we would face whatever lay ahead together. I nodded, feeling the weight of the codex still heavy in my satchel, its pages now a little less ominous. The words that once seemed like a death sentence now felt like a map, a guide to a future we could shape with our own hands. The bond we had forged was not a curse. It was a shield, a promise, a living thing that would grow stronger with each challenge. As we walked back through the tunnels, the bioluminescent fungi cast soft, pulsing lights on the walls, painting our path with colors that seemed to dance to a silent song. The distant chants of the sentinels grew softer, as if they too sensed the shift in the air. I could hear the faint clink of crystal forges far above, a reminder that life continued even as we stood on the brink of a new era. When we reached the archive chamber, the glow moss settled into a steady rhythm, no longer a dying heartbeat but a calm, steady pulse. I placed the codex on the stone table, its pages still warm from the amber shield. Lyra stood beside me, her shoulder brushing against mine, a simple contact that spoke volumes. "What now?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, the question hanging between us like a fragile thread. She smiled, a small, fierce curve of her lips that lit up the dim room. "Now we write our own story," she replied, her eyes bright with determination. "We will teach the council that fear is not a weapon, that love can be a shield. We will show them that the true dawn is not something to be feared, but something to be embraced if we stand together." I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes, not from sorrow but from the overwhelming surge of gratitude and love. The world outside might still be a place of shadows and danger, but within these stone walls, we had found a light that no sun could ever extinguish. The night deepened and the city of Umbra settled into its quiet rhythm. Yet inside the archive, the amber glow of our shield lingered, a testament to the bond we had forged. I closed my eyes and let the memory of the fire wash over me, feeling its heat settle into a comforting warmth that radiated through my entire being. Lyra's hand found mine once more, fingers intertwining as they always had. "Whatever comes," she whispered, "we will face it together, bound by a love that can outshine even the fiercest sun." I squeezed her hand, feeling the steady beat of her heart against mine, and knew that the prophecy had not foretold our doom, it had foretold our destiny. The true dawn had not consumed us, it had transformed us, turning fear into fire, dread into desire, and isolation into an unbreakable bond. As the first warm rays of the new sun brushed our faces through the narrow cracks in the stone, I lifted my head and let the light wash over me. It was not a scorching blaze but a gentle caress, a promise that the world could heal. I turned to Lyra, our eyes meeting in a silent vow, and whispered, "Together, forever." The story of Umbra would continue, its people would rise, and the veil would one day mend. But in this moment, beneath the glow moss and the amber shield, we were simply two souls bound by love, ready to face any darkness, any fire, any sunrise that dared to challenge us. The world might be a dying ember, but our love was a flame that would never be snuffed out.